Hey guys, this is Anthony Morganti from anthonymorganti.com. This is the back of my car. Recently, I've been posting pictures of wildlife photographs I've taken, and I've received a lot of emails from folks asking me some details on how I go about shooting wildlife. Well, I thought I'd start a series of videos where I'm out and about actually shooting wildlife, and I'll take you along with me via my GoPro camera that I have strapped to my chest. Now, right now I have it tilted down. I'm just going to show you the equipment I use and briefly explain why I use what I use. Now, the camera itself, I have a Nikon D800E and I have a Nikon 200 to 500 f/5.6 lens. And I also have a Nikon D7000 that I use sometimes, but it's a crop sensor camera. It does give me more reach. But I found that the full-frame Nikon D800E, if I crop it in post, it has pretty much the same resolution cropped as my D7000 does right out of the camera. So I prefer using my D800E. I'm just more used to this camera and I like using it. So it pretty much gives me similar results as the D7000. As I mentioned, I just have to crop it in post. The lens itself, it's a relatively new lens. I think it's great, works out well, so I really like that lens. And I'll talk about settings in a minute. Usually when I'm out and about, I'll use a Black Rapid Sport shoulder sling. And the reason why I'm not using it today is because I have this GoPro strapped to my chest, so this would interfere with the GoPro. So instead of that, I'm using this Spider holster, it's called. So it's just a holster for the camera, and I use this quite a bit too, and it works fine. It's great. It's a great holster. So we won't be using this today. I just wanted to show you that. Usually what I bring multi-fiber cloths. I have a couple here, and I use that just to dust the camera off and whatnot. And if it looks like it's going to rain, I'll take one with me, and it doesn't look like it's going to rain today. So what I'll do is I'll be at the back of my car or in my car, and I usually take the lens cap off and the lens hood before I even start. And I have a rocket blaster, and I'll just dust off the lens. Usually that's all it needs. Then I'll put on the lens hood. Now I turn on the camera and I just double check my settings. I usually shoot wide open, so I make sure I'm in aperture priority mode. I'm on f/5.6. I make sure my ISO is at 100, and then I double check that my exposure compensation is at 0. I sometimes will change that, and I'll talk about that as I shoot, why I might use a different exposure compensation while I'm shooting. And then I double check the lens. I make sure that I'm on normal image stabilization, that I am on, I usually keep it on full to focus, because sometimes things are close that I need to focus on. And I'm on automatic to focus, so I'm good there. And that's it. I'm pretty much ready to rock and roll. So I usually, if it's raining out, I'll take multi-fiber cloth with me, but since it isn't, I'll leave those in the car, and I'm ready to go. Put on my glasses. All right, now today we're at Tifft Nature Preserve. It is a nature preserve that is inside the city limits of Buffalo. It's got an interesting history I'll talk about a little bit as we go on. Now, as for the settings on my camera, it's most important to me is resolution. I need the most resolute picture possible. That's why I like using the Nikon D800E. Unfortunately, the Nikon D800E does not have great high ISO performance. So I have to keep the ISO low. So generally, I really need to shoot on a brighter day. And I prefer a day like today that has light clouds. It's just helps diffuse the light, and the light isn't quite as direct. And with the clouds as they are now, I'll be able to shoot at higher shutter speeds, which really helps. So today is a good day, but typically I'd like to be out earlier. Animals tend to be more active earlier and later in the day, and it's around 10 in the morning now, and I had some projects I had to finish up this morning, so I couldn't get out till now. So that's the settings on the camera, why I keep them the way I do. And typically then, when I get out, I'm interested in where the light is coming from. Even if it's being diffused by clouds, there's still some direction to it. And I like to shoot specifically so the light is front lighting my subject. So I usually will take a note of where the light is coming from, as you give you a look at Buffalo's waterfront. And you gotta excuse me if I huff and puff a little. I am 56 years old. So anyway, I like to see where the light is coming from, and that kind of determines how I'm gonna walk. And I want to walk to maximize my chance of photographing an animal that is front lit. Now, since it's later in the morning, the sun is more overhead, so it's not quite as important that I worry about the way I'm going to walk. But it does seem to be a little bit more towards the south, the way we're walking right now. So I'm going to walk out, and then I'm going to be walking back towards the middle of the nature preserve. So I'll be walking north for the main part of the walk. That'll put the sun behind me, which will give me the advantage of having the animals being front lit. The problem you'll have, though, most birds at least, they don't like to perch in a tree facing the sun. So you'll have their butt end backlit, which is the perfect lighting. So hopefully you have a bird that twitches around and moves, so you get it a little more front lit and it's not backlit, or its back isn't being lit. So I hope that made sense, but the light is the most important thing when I'm out. I always look for the direction of the light and how I'm going to best utilize it to my advantage. All right, so we'll be cutting in and out here and there as I stumble across an animal or two. I should say that typically if I go out, if I get one decent picture, I'm happy. Usually I shouldn't say usually, but often I don't get any. But then some days I get 10. So it's really hard to say. Hopefully today is one of those days we get 10, but I don't know. We're out here a little later in the day, so it's going to be hard to say. Here's a woodpecker on some Phragmites. Now I do have the camera on continuous, high-speed continuous, and I usually fire off a few shots. I don't just hold the shutter down, firing off a dozen shots, because that'll fill the buffer and then I might miss a better shot. So I fire off a few. Woodpecker's got his back to me. Now I'm using spot metering and single point focus. I put the focus point right on my subject, which is this case is this woodpecker, which I'm scaring a little bit. Oh, there he goes. All right. Now, another thing is, being a professional, I guess, and having, somewhat of a reputation. And the reason being is I sell limited edition prints for quite a bit of money. I typically will only show my very, very best work. I remember when I first started, I showed anyone a decent picture. I took a decent picture and I would show everyone that picture. But it seems like as you get more established, you're going to be a lot more fussy about what you show. Now, that woodpecker shot wasn't a great shot. It's okay, but nothing I'd be able to sell. Nothing I'd really want to brag about. But for the purpose of this video, and so you're not bored to tears, I will be showing you some of the shots I've taken, just so you could see some of the results. Okay, I just walked off the dunes. Now I'm really into the preserve itself. I'm at the extreme south end of the preserve, and I'm still concerned about the light. Light is a little bit to my right, so anything that is to my right probably will not be a good shot. So I'm really concerned about stuff to my left. Anything to my left should be a decent image. Now, one thing that would make me a better wildlife photographer is if I knew more about birds specifically. I'm trying to learn. I bought some birding books, but there are some birders, and I've run into a few here, that could tell by the song what type of bird it is. And I'm sure I missed a lot of great shots of birds because I've heard a bird singing, didn't realize it was a gorgeous bird up in a tree, and didn't notice it right away and just kept walking. So I think that's what would improve my wildlife photography tremendously, is if I learn more about birds specifically. I do know quite a bit about animals, as I've always been fascinated by them. But there's just so many different birds. It's a lot to learn. Now, typically where we're coming up now is a service road, and I'm going to be taking that. We're going to be heading north, so the sun will be pretty much at my back. A lot of deer are usually on this service road, but it is later in the day, so I'm not sure what we'll see. I think we have a bird here. I don't know if it's a yellow-rumped warbler, but it's too many vines and trees. It's kind of bopping around. I really couldn't get a good shot of it. Part thing with wildlife photography is if you're easily frustrated, it isn't the job for you. You have to be patient. This bird's not sitting still, it keeps moving around. It's some type of warbler, I'm not sure what though. There's a guy coming up to my left here, and I'll probably cut it out. I don't think it would be right to have other people in my videos without their permission. So far, I've seen 3 different species of warblers. I've seen a yellow-rumped warbler, a chestnut warbler, and a yellow warbler, but couldn't get a good shot of them. And I'm usually the one, I won't press the shutter unless I think it's a good shot. Just especially with the Nikon D800E, the files are so large, and to have all that wasted space on my hard drive, then I have to go through and delete everything that is not up to snuff, is just a waste of time. And I know when I have an image that, or a potential for an image that is a winner, so I know when to usually press the shutter. So, trouble is, everything's starting to bloom. There's a lot of branches flying around in the way. The birds are deep into the bushes or the tree, and branches are in front of them, and you really need an unobscured shot to be a winner. So you just keep walking. I'm not sure here what this is here. It's just think it's a gray catbird. He's singing now and then. I want to catch him with his beak open. Oh, he took off. And he flew right in front of me. There are times when I stop walking and I'll just stay in one spot. But I don't know if we'll do that today. I could see the parking lot from here, and there's school bus in the parking lot. It means there's probably some school children around. And typically, you know, the kids are kind of loud, and I usually try to avoid them and hope they kind of scare the wildlife toward me, wherever I am. So there is a possibility I may stay in one spot, but we'll see. I've actually sold images to Tifft Nature Preserve for their advertising. They've recently had one of a deer I took on those mounds I was walking on earlier. They had on a billboard it was on one billboard 1 month, and then on a different billboard on a different month. And here are the students I'm talking about. They're right up ahead. And I have more students to my left, I think, coming over this little bridge. So I'm kind of stuck in the middle here. And that will bring me back the way I came, so I don't want to go that way. So I think I really have no choice but to walk past these students up in front of me. Okay, I'm going to continue down this service road, but I'm going to take a side juncture down this. I think it's really kind of an unmarked path. It just goes to a marsh. We'll see what's hanging out down here. I'll have a link. I was going to talk about the history of Tifft Nature Preserve, but I think that would be kind of boring for most of you. So I'll have a link if you're interested about this preserve. It's actually very interesting. It's part of Buffalo's industrial past. I don't really see. I thought maybe there'd be some birds up in these trees here, although I'd be shooting into the sun. So I think we'll exit and go back down our service road that I was going on. There's a yellow warbler, I believe. See how close I could get. You can see he flew away. His rump was into the sun, so I had his back end toward me. Up in the tree there, if he stays long enough. Flew away right when I brought the camera up. Like I mentioned, you have to be very patient if you're a wildlife photographer. Okay, we're coming up on the north viewing blind, and on the path they call Rabbit Run. I think just take a quick look at the north viewing blind and see what's up there. Here's another yellow warbler. Let's see if I could get this guy here. Keeps moving away from me. There's branches in the way. And lots of branches in between me and him or her. Yeah, it's just too jittery. Too jittery. Yeah. Fired up a couple shots. I don't think it's very good though. Here he is up in the tree here. Flew back this way. This is a clean shot actually if it would stay still, but no, flew away. Yeah, it's to my right. The sun is to my right, so I'd be shooting into the sun. So let's just keep walking. Some shots I've sold on these viewing blinds in the past, but like I said, the light isn't the best right now for shooting from these blinds. But we'll see what's out here anyway. See, brings you out over the marsh. You can see a lot of tree swallows flying around. Some red-winged blackbirds up on top of the blind. I usually have my ringer off. And as I suspected, just a Canadian goose. Yeah, a few Canadian geese actually. Not much out here today. All right, we'll head back to Rabbit Run and go down there a little bit. All right, now I'm headed back south. I'm on a path they call Rabbit Run. I often see a red-tailed hawk on this path, and I've took quite a few pictures of him over the past few months. Hopefully he'll cooperate and be out to play today. But if not, I just wanted to mention why and when I would use exposure compensation. Now I mentioned that I'm using spot metering, but when I shoot up at a tree, a bird in a tree I should say, and the bright sky is behind the bird, even if I'm using spot metering and I have the spot over the bird itself tends to be underexposed. So I use spot metering, or I use exposure compensation, usually quite a bit actually, depending on how bright it is. It could be a stop, maybe 2 stops of exposure compensation. Here's a couple. The exposure compensation. So if I'm shooting up, I quickly could change exposure compensation right here, and I could just spin it up to a stop or 2. Oh, there's some more students up in front of me. So it's around where the hawk usually is, so I think Mr. Hawk won't be out to play today. All right, I got past that group of students. They were a little louder than students typically are. So I suspect most of the animals are way up high in the trees at the moment. But I'll just keep walking and we'll come back if I find anything interesting. Okay, we're leaving the main part of the preserve now. I'm passing a lot of students, so the animals are way up. Birds are way up in the trees and the animals are deep in the bush. So what I typically do is I go back to the mounds I started on and finish up over there. And there's more students coming as we talk. Okay, walking back up on the hill, or on the mounds I think they call them, which is actually, if you read anything about the preserve and the links I provide, this is buried garbage from a dump. They buried it and capped it off and created these mounds. There's a bird on top of the post there, but the sun is to my left and it's hard to get a decent shot. You can see how it has its rump into the sun. So if I want to shoot him front on, it's not a great shot, but see if I can get you a little closer. It's It's a tree swallow is what it is. I have about 4 bazillion pictures of tree swallows. And he's off. Not a award-winning picture by any means, and typically not one I would probably share. As far as that front, I really didn't take any pictures today that are worthy of sharing. There's a couple Canadian geese in front of me. If they have young with them, they're very, very territorial. Yeah, they do. And they will attempt to attack me if I just come up on them too quickly. So I just kind of go and let them move out of the way. Now, unfortunately, they're going the way I want to go. Shooting into the sun. We'll see what happens here. Let's get a little smaller aperture here. Again, a not award-winning shot, but just something interesting. If Mom or Dad would move out of the way, I could just get a shot of the young. It doesn't look like Mom or Dad want to do that. I would prefer, actually, if Mom and Dad were out in front. And then what I would do is I'd get down low and shoot them. And that would, the out of focus portions in front of them and behind them would naturally frame them. But I really don't have that opportunity with parents right in amongst them like that. It's not a shot that I think would be very good. They're kind of drifting apart a little bit now. He's coming back. Nah. Nah, don't like the shot. Notice I don't chimp either. I have review off on my cameras. I shouldn't say I never chimp. First couple shots I might look at just to see what exposure looks like. Also, if I shoot up into a tree and I have the sky behind it, I might look at that one to see how much exposure compensation I might have to add. Now I'm kind of in a bad spot here. See if Mom and Dad go off into the bush that way. It's all muddy here. I'm going to go this way. As long as they're not hissing at me. If they start hissing, then I better move a little quicker. It's not that they're going to kill you or anything, but they will nip you. And it's just kind of ridiculous being nipped by a goose. Okay, I'm walking into the sun now. So again, that's the main concern as I go. Where is the light coming from? Now these phragmites that are in front of me, those tall weeds, shooting into the sun, unless I'm doing something arty, it wouldn't look very good. So it's a waste of time even looking that way. Something would be to my right. I see a warbler up in the tree here. And the birds are really jumpy today. They're jumping all around. So I could walk over there. It's a yellow warbler. They're fairly common. By the time I get there, it probably will move on, but we'll see. in the branches, in the branches. I can't see it up there. There's a red-winged blackbird to my right. Now, if I was patient, I'd just wait here. But I'm not really patient this morning. So, plus it's yellow warbler. I have quite a few pictures of them. You guys may remember in one of my Learn Lightroom videos, I processed an image that had these bushes in the image. And I don't always just come here with a big long lens. Sometimes I come here with a wide angle lens for landscapes. And lots of interesting things if you look for it. You know what to look for and you're open to it. That image right there that I just showed you, I actually sold quite a few copies of that image. So I always wondered how many people would just walk past that. Well, that's it for our journey today. I'm a little disappointed. Really didn't get any good shots. If you guys like, I'll do this again. Maybe we'll go to a different nature preserve. See what we could find. But the parking lot's right ahead, so I'm going to head to my car. Thank you, everyone that watches my videos. I really do appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys soon.